Have you ever wondered how the most richest and most powerful people in the world seem to be untouchable? What if I told you they're working with demons and jinn to be able to control society, to be able to avoid being caught up in their actions? And they're doing this to such a degree where people are starting to feel trapped and hopeless. Now, if you've been watching for quite some time, you know I talk about hopelessness frequently and the dangers of it and why it's their total goal. And by the way, this isn't anything new, and I'm sure you guys already know this, but this has been going on for quite some time. I've touched on the cult of Mithras and Constantine. There are so many things that predated back to even the Roman Empire and before that. And by the way, the Roman Empire never went away. It's still here. They just rebranded it and called themselves the Vatican. So today I'm going to expose everything. I'm going to expose exactly how the elites use jinn and demons to control society and exactly how you can defeat it and not fall victim to these tactics. So like I was saying before, this is nothing new. So I'm going to start at the beginning, at the early stages, because they're doing the exact same things that now that they were doing previously. So I'll pop up some pictures of the hidden temples that we found about the cult of Mithras. We found this literally under the oldest Christian churches. So they still exist, only a few of them have popped up, but in another video we'll talk about what's underneath the Vatican. That's way creepier. But I'll show you guys some examples of what we have found. We have evidence of this. It is literally carved in stone. It does not become any more stronger of a case than finding something actually carved in stone. So these practices have been going around for quite some time, and although most pagan rituals were kind of phased out, and this is only due to not using the name of the spirit or the name of the jinn correctly. So for example, talking about like Easter and Christmas, the ritual involving Christmas is kind of diluted because they're not using the real name of the spirit. Now that jumps into a conversation of egregores and it gets more conspiracy from there, but you guys get the point. And that is the fact that Mithras's birthday is on the same day that we all celebrate Christmas on. Or maybe not we all, but you guys know what I mean. And a fun fact, every single person that was in the Roman Empire's officer class were involved in these ancient Mithras rituals. Every single one of them. All of the officer class and up was in these underground tunnels doing these sacrifices and demonic stuff. They were doing this for protection rituals and to be better, supposedly better at war. So the rituals that they partake in all involve three different things. It's intention, meditation, and energy source. Usually the reason why they're using the sacrifices is that's an energy source or like an offering to these spirits. They sacrifice or they give something up that they love, care about, or otherwise, and say, hey, I'm giving you this thing. I want this in return. Now this all comes down to the relationship that they have with the specific spirit. If they have a good relationship with the jinn, they don't really got to bring as much and whatever. All that doesn't matter. But the point is they have to bring something to the table. Now, with God, when you're praying and you have religion, you don't have to give up anything. You don't have to get a candle with a specific color. You don't have to roll the candle in certain herbs, do certain things and charge an altar. Like all these other things you don't have to do. It's obsolete. You can just pray to God. He doesn't require any offering from us. He just asks that we live a certain way and lines out the ways we should live. So keep that in mind. There's a reason why I'm bringing that up, but keep that in mind as we go through all of this, because it is kind of interesting, these pagan beliefs where people always have to sacrifice and give something up. But whenever you just pray to God, you don't have to sacrifice anything. Like you can argue Ramadan's a bit of a sacrifice, but you don't have to give up like physical objects and find a specific candle with a specific color on it to be able to pray. You just pray. So one of the main methods, and I touched on it briefly in the last video, but one of the main methods that these elites in Hollywood and stuff use is movies and music. I said Hollywood a bit early, but you guys knew where I was going there anyways. See, what they use is this specific spirit named Belphegor. There's an individual that's higher up in Hollywood. I can't say his name or else the videos get suppressed. If you guys have been around for a minute, I've talked about it briefly and everything gets shut down. I almost lose my accounts. It's crazy every time. So if you guys know who I'm talking about, drop it in the comments. I'll like the comment where the name is correct. But they use Belphegor, and this was exposed to me by somebody very, very high up in Hollywood and in music. And what's interesting with that is that kind of confused me for a while, because I'm like, okay, Belphegor has to do with inventions. I finally realized Belphegor has to do with the sin of sloth or laziness. So what they do is they create these movies and these music to make you complacent, to make you comfortable. And being comfortable isn't always a good thing. Now, we want to be comfortable in our life. We want positive, easy things to happen, but we don't grow in comfort. And we also don't fight back when we're comfortable. So a lot of the time what these demons are doing is actually making us comfortable, not uncomfortable. If they do make us feel not well, they push us right before the point where we break. So some of you are going to understand this very deeply, but some of the strongest people will have the worst situation while dealing with demons, meaning these demons can push us way harder before we snap and before we break. And that's because we have just a tolerance to pain, or we just ignore it. We push it to the side. We're stubborn, whatever the excuse may be. We ignore the pain to such a degree where these demons can push a lot harder than they would normally. And this is the few that don't rely on complacency. They don't rely on us being comfortable. But I'm getting off track here. The main point of all this is they will use comfort by working with this specific jinn. And they create movies and music that makes us feel comfortable within ourselves. Now, they do this through glorifying bad deeds. It took me a minute. I had to really think about how to word that. So they will glorify and make us feel comfortable and make us feel okay for living a very negative lifestyle, living in a way that's not good. The movies and the music will kind of condone these actions and say like, oh, it's completely okay. Everybody's like this, right? They use bandwagon techniques and so on and so forth. And they do this using the energy of the jinn that is involved in complacency and sloth and laziness. Now, one of the questions I get asked quite frequently is, how do these people work with demons and they not get backlash, they not get hurt? And when people do like protection rituals is what they call it, what you're doing is essentially paying off one bully to keep away the others. It's extortion, in other words. It's like you pay off one guy and then he's going to keep his buddies from beating you up all the time or stealing your lunch money. It's the exact same concept. So these individuals that are working with these demons, sometimes they give enough offerings and they do well enough to where they're not getting burned. And this is just because of this kind of deal, this kind of contract where it's like, oh, you don't beat me up, I'll give you this, and you get your buddies to leave me alone.